welcome back to my channel. If you're thinking that I'm sounding a bit nasal, that's because I'm full of the cold. But it's that time of week where I need to film and upload a video for you, so you know, I'm just gonna have to get on with it basically. Today's video is gonna be a story time, and this story time is gonna continue on from the other story time I did called I Got Detention. You don't need to have watched that story time to understand what's happening in this one. But if you do watch it, it kind of gives you a bit of background on where I'm starting from here. I'll put a link in the description box below to that video for you to watch if you so desire. But like I said, you don't need to have watched that one to listen to this one. For those of you who haven't watched the previous story time, I Got Detention, just to give you a quick recap. Basically, I was going to a private school in Egypt because my dad is Egyptian, and I went to visit him and stay with him, and I went to school there for a while. In the last story time, I kind of left off with my dad having given the school a bit of a row because they were supposed to have taught me in English and they weren't. So the school weren't very happy with me because I had gotten them into trouble with my dad. And so this is kind of where all the problems start. I am now not popular with the school whatsoever, and so any reason they can find to pick on me, they are, basically. So I go into school one day and I'm walking down the hallway, and one of the assistant head teachers grabs me by the arm, pulls me to one side and tells me off. And she says that I am breaking, or that I am breaching school policy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? How have I managed to breach school policy? And she says, well, you're wearing your hair down. Like this, basically. You're wearing your hair down and that's breaching school policy. And I was like, I didn't even know there was a school policy where you weren't allowed to have your hair down. Like, this sounds pretty ridiculous to me. And she's like, no, your hair must be tied back at all times. And I was like, well, it's the first I'm hearing of this. Like, why do we even have this school policy? And she said, well, if you wear your hair down like this, you turn the boys on. And so in order to make sure that they don't have wrong thoughts, you have to have your hair tied back. Really? So I was like, okay. So I tied my hair back, and I made sure that going forward I always had my hair tied back. Shortly afterwards, like, I don't know if it was like the next day or the next couple of days, it was a very short time afterwards, I'm walking down the hallway. Again, I get pulled aside by the assistant head teacher, and I'm like, what have I done wrong? And she's like, you're breaching school policy. And I was like, how am I breaching school policy? And she says, you're wearing nail polish. And I was like, I didn't know that there was anything in the school policy that said we can't wear nail polish. And she's like, well, it turns the boys on and it gives them wrong thoughts, so you can't wear nail polish. And I was like, okay, well, I can't do anything about it today. I'll just make sure that tomorrow I don't have any on when I come to school. The next day or the next couple of days, I don't know, it was all like within really short periods of time. I was walking down the hallway again, and again, assistant head teacher grabs me and pulls me to one side. She's like, you're breaching school policy. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I breaching school policy? She's like, you're wearing lipstick. I was like, I'm not wearing lipstick, I'm wearing clear lip gloss. She's like, well, it's the same thing. It turns the boys on, it gives them wrong thoughts, you can't do it. I was like, fine, okay. So then the next thing that I get pulled aside by the assistant head teacher for is the fact that I'm wearing heels to school. And I was like, I'm not wearing heels to school. And she's like, yes, you are. I was like, no, they're platforms. They're like this much of a platform all the way around. I was like, they're not high heels, they're not sexy. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. She's like, well, they turn the boys on and give them wrong thoughts. I'm like, seriously, how can these platforms, I mean, they were pretty ugly, how can they turn the boys on and give them wrong thoughts? They're not high heels. She's like, well, just don't wear them anymore, stop it, don't do that. And I was like, okay, fine. So then the next thing I know is a day, couple days later, I don't know, again, all within very short periods of time, I get pulled aside again by the assistant head teacher. You're breaching school policy. I was like, seriously, what am I doing now to breach school policy? She said, you have your sleeves rolled up. Let me just explain this point here. Basically, the school uniform was not like gender specific. It was a unisex school uniform which consisted of an oversized baggy shirt, that was white with blue stripes all the way down it. More like a man's shirt, and even in the smallest size they had, it was humongous. I mean, it just swallowed you up. And the sleeves would come past your hands, like way past your hands. And all the girls would have the same problem and that I was having, which is that you couldn't do anything because your sleeves were well past like your fingers. It was ridiculous. So the way that we got around it was we just rolled our sleeves back like this, just to make it practical so that it wasn't in the way. But apparently this, you guessed it, was turning the boys on and giving them wrong thoughts. I mean, this school uniform was so ugly. And I'll tell you a funny story about it actually. One of the students said that she was walking to school one day and this man who owned like a car garage at the other side of the road yelled over at her and told her to stop skiving and get back to work. And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't work for you. And he's like, you're wearing my uniform that all my mechanics wear, therefore you work for me. Stop skiving and get back to work. She's like, this is my school uniform. I'm a school student. And the man didn't believe her. So our school uniform was actually the same as a car garage's mechanics uniforms, and they were hideous. Ugh. Anyway, to get back to the point, at this stage I was getting so fed up of being pulled up by the teachers every single day. It seemed like they were picking on me for anything and everything that they possibly could, and they kept like really telling me off about it. And I was like, hey, I'm not the only girl in this school that wears my sleeves like this. All the girls wear their sleeves like this, and we've worn them like this for like ages and nobody said anything before, and I don't see you pulling those girls aside and telling them off for wearing their shirt sleeves rolled up like that. It's just like, well, just don't do it, because we don't want to give the boys wrong thoughts. And I was like, seriously, if wearing nail polish, wearing clear lip gloss, having my hair down instead of in a bobble, having my sleeves rolled up and wearing ugly platforms gives the boys wrong thoughts and turns them on, then I think the problem is bigger than just what I'm doing. I think you need to speak to the boys. Why can't they just have some control over their own thoughts? Every day I was just getting picked on for something else and pulled aside for something else and told off for something else, and it was just really getting quite tedious. But the real turning point came with this next stage. This is the point that where I was just like, okay, enough is enough, like this has to stop. I'm fed up being a goody two-shoes, I'm fed up trying to play by the rules and do everything right, like I am done. Basically, I had a friend in this school. She came from New Zealand, and I'm not gonna say her real name in case she doesn't want to be like named on this, so I'm just gonna call her Nicole. So Nicole came from New Zealand and we were like two peas in a pod. We hit off straight away. We had the same sense of humor, the same thoughts. We were like best friends, and I was just overjoyed to have met Nicole, and every time I spent time with her was just like the greatest. So the teachers didn't like me and Nicole being friends, and I don't know why. They just had a problem with it for some reason. And I remember Nicole and I, it was free period, and we were sat in the courtyard at a table and we were just sitting chatting away. All of a sudden a large gang of boys from one of the other schools comes into our courtyard. Now, to kind of make sense of this, basically our school was in a massive complex full of other schools, and we were not allowed to speak to anybody from any of the other schools. You weren't allowed to intermingle. So a large gang of boys from another school in the same complex as us comes into our courtyard, and we're just like, oh, what's going on? And they start circling our table like sharks. And we're just like, okay, like this is so random. And then one of the boys breaks formation and he runs up to the wall, and then the remaining boys tighten the circle and keep circling us. And we're just watching this completely overwhelmed, completely like, what the fudge is going on, right? So then another boy leaves the circle and runs over to the first boy who's by the wall, and then the remaining boys again close formation and continue circling like sharks. So the first boy who left the formation, he kind of does like creates like a footstool for the second boy, who then puts his foot on the guy's like hands, and the first guy like lifts him up over the wall. And then a third guy leaves the circle, and then the remaining guys like close the circle, keep circling, and so this third guy, he then goes on the first guy's hands and gets up over the wall. And this continues until all of the boys have gone except from two, which is the very first guy who's been doing like the foot ups and the last boy to leave. At this stage, the head teacher looks out her window, which overlooks the courtyard, and sees what's going on. She knocks on the window and the remaining two boys scarp her, and we're just like, oh my gosh, they're in so much trouble. Like, she's gonna go to the other school and tell the other school what those boys were doing. Like, they are in so much trouble. The next thing I know is the head teacher, with a very stern look on her face, beckons my friend into her office. And I'm like, why would she possibly want to speak to Nicole? Why does she look annoyed at Nicole? What has Nicole done wrong? So Nicole disappears into the head teacher's office, and that is the last I see of Nicole for 2 whole weeks. I don't see Nicole for the rest of that day. She just disappears without warning. I text her, I don't get a response. I call her, I don't get a response. I can't go around to her house and visit because of the way that things are over there. I wasn't allowed to leave the house unchaperoned, and I wasn't allowed to socialise. So unless I was going to a friend's house for studying purposes, like, I wasn't allowed to go to their house. So basically, I couldn't visit in person. The only way I could contact her was by phone, and she wasn't answering her calls and she wasn't answering her texts. So the next day I was like, oh well, I'll see her at school and then I'll find out what went on. But the next day, Nicole's not at school, and I'm like, okay, where is Nicole? This is very out of character. The following day, Nicole is still not at school. And the day after that, Nicole is still not at school. Nicole is still not answering her texts. And Nicole is still not answering her phone calls. And I'm just like, what is going on right now? It's like she's disappeared off the face of the earth. So during this time that Nicole was out of school, the teachers approach me and they tell me that they think Nicole is a very bad influence on me, and that I should not be friends with Nicole, but instead I should be friends with the popular, clever, smart girls like Sarah. That's right, if you watched the previous story time about how I got detention, you'll know exactly who Sarah is. And here the teachers are telling me to be friends with smart, popular, good girls like Sarah. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like the school are doing this. And I was like, I don't want to be friends with Sarah because she betrayed me. I don't want to be friends with the other girls like her because I don't have anything in common with them. They're all stuck up and they think they're better than everybody else. And that's just not me, and that's not what I'm about, and I don't relate to that. I'd rather be friends with Nicole because Nicole is just like me. She's down to earth, she gets me, she's my best friend. So I tell the teacher, thanks, but no thanks. I'm good with Nicole. The teachers do not like this. Anyway, after 2 weeks, Nicole eventually appears at school, and honestly, it was like the best day ever. It was like, oh my gosh, where have you been? And so Nicole tells me, basically, she got suspended from school because of those boys who escaped. And I was like, I'm sorry, explain that to me? And she said the head teacher blamed Nicole for the boys escaping school and said that Nicole should have stopped the boys from escaping. And I said to Nicole, okay, first of all, we are not allowed to talk to any of the students from the other complexes. In order to have stopped the boys or made contact with them would involve us talking to them, which would mean we'd be breaking school policy. Secondly, Nicole and I are 2 girls against, like, I don't know, 6 to 8 boys. How are we, 2 girls against 6 to 8 boys, supposed to stop them leaving school? Like, thirdly, if we say, hey, don't leave school, it's against the rules, they're hardly gonna go, you're right, we won't. They're just gonna like laugh and do it anyway. Like, what could we have done about it? We couldn't even go and like tell a teacher what was going on because the boys were circling us like sharks and wouldn't let us like leave the table. And she's like, well, that's why I got suspended, and then my dad grounded me for 2 weeks and took my phone away. And when I thought about it, I was like, you know what, this is just like some next level bull. And I was like, okay, I think I know what's happened here. The school have deliberately suspended Nicole with some rubbish reason, just any excuse they could, just so they could separate Nicole and I. And they did this deliberately, and while Nicole was out of the way, they tried to work on me and get me to turn against Nicole and to leave Nicole and be friends with the popular girls. And it's just like everything just fit into place, and I was so furious. Like, I was just so mad. I am done trying to play by the rules and trying to please these people. It doesn't matter what I do, it's never good enough, and now they're messing with my friend and they've messed with me, and like, enough is enough. If they want to see bad influence, they will see bad influence. So I decided to stop being a goody two-shoes and break all the rules. So Nicole and I would go and visit all the other schools in the complex, and we would talk to all the other students in the other complex. Nicole and I would leave the school grounds and go to the shop across the road and buy some chipsy. And we weren't allowed to leave the school grounds and go to the shop across the road, but we would do it anyway. And I wore my hair down, and I wore clear lip gloss, and I wore nail polish, and I wore my ugly platforms, and I rolled my sleeves up. And the teachers didn't like it. And for once, I didn't care. I was enjoying being a rebel and breaking all the rules. Honestly, when I decided to become a rebel, I had the most fun at that school I had had my entire time there, because I was done trying to please people. I was just like, stuff it, I'm just gonna enjoy myself. And that's what I did. It probably doesn't seem like really bad things to do, like wearing my hair down and wearing nail polish and wearing lip gloss and wearing like ugly platforms and speaking to other students from the other school complexes. Probably seems like lame ways to rebel, but for me, who was brought up to be an absolute goody two-shoes, respect my elders, follow the rules down to a T, like, this was massive for me to do this. So that is my story about how I turned into a rebel at school. And I am not advocating that you turn into a rebel and that you break the rules. If anything, I would say listen to your teachers and do as your parents tell you and respect your elders. Do not follow my example. I wasn't right to behave the way that I did. I just needed to behave that way to kind of like make a stand and show them that they couldn't push me around. But I do not advocate doing that. Do not follow in my footsteps. This is not me trying to encourage you to misbehave. This is just me giving you some entertainment and telling you a story from my past. Anyway, I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video, and let me know what kind of videos you prefer me doing, because I do like vlogs, I do my story times, I've done my makeup videos, I've done my hauls. Like, let me know which is your favorite type and what you would like to see more from me. I don't even know if that's right grammar. More of from me? Let me know what you'd like to see anyway, and until next time, stay safe, have a great time guys, bye.